Ramadan begins in Gaza with no truce in sight and a dire humanitarian crisis gripping the besieged territory. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula announces death of its leader Khalid Batrafi in mysterious circumstances. Yemen's children in the Tehama region are forced into labor in Ramadan to support their families. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is English News with me, Shazad Delbey. Medical sources announced the death of 2 children in Gaza due to famine, bringing the number of victims of malnutrition to 27. The sources said that 2 children died as a result of malnutrition, dehydration, and lack of medical supplies at Kamal Edwan Hospital, northern Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip has been subjected to continuous Israeli aggression since October 7 and has been witnessing difficult humanitarian conditions in light of the severe scarcity of food, water, and medicine and fuel supplies. Hundreds of Israeli settlers stormed the courtyards of Al-Blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque under the protection of the occupation police. 275 settlers stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque from the Mugharbi Gate side, carrying out tours and performing rituals in its courtyard, especially in the eastern region. In the same context, the occupation police tightened its military measures in Al-Aqsa Mosque with the beginning of Ramadan. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Israel stopped any efforts to protect civilians and bring in aid. The ministry warned in a statement of the consequences of Israel's bets on the continued failure of the international community and the Security Council to stop the genocide and the destruction of infrastructure of the State of Palestine. The ministry called on the UN Security Council to assume its responsibilities in translating UN Resolution 2720 into procedures and measures that force the occupying state to implement all of its provisions. The Palestinian economy suffered production losses estimated at $2.3 billion during the first 4 months of the Israeli aggression. According to the statistics, there was an almost complete halt in production for private sector in the Gaza Strip and unprecedented decline in the West Bank. The majority of workers in the Gaza Strip, estimated at more than 153,000 workers, were unemployed.
Ramadan embodies the values of peace, resilience, and generosity. It is a period of reflection and prayer, an opportunity to come together and uplift each other. Sadly, many will mark these months while facing conflict, displacement, and fear. My thoughts and heart are with them, from the people of Afghanistan to the Sahel, from the Horn of Africa to Syria and beyond. And I wish to express a special message of solidarity and support to all those suffering from the horrors of Gaza. In these trying times, the spirit of Ramadan is a beacon of hope, a reminder of our shared humanity. Let us all be inspired to heal divisions, to support those in need, and to work as one for the safety and dignity of every member of the human family. May these holy months bring peace and guide us towards a more just and compassionate world. Ramadan Kareem.
Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula announced the killing of its leader Khalid bin Omar Batrafi. The organization said it chose Saad bin Atif al-Awaqli, nicknamed Abu Layth, as the new leader of the organization. This report has more details.
Al-Qaeda militant group has announced that the leader of its Yemen branch, Khalid al-Batarfi, has died. The U.S. government has placed a $5 million bounty on his head over leading Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, or AQAP. In a video released by Al-Qaeda on Sunday, al-Batarfi's deceased body was wrapped in a funeral shroud of Al-Qaeda's black and white flag. The group offered no details on the cause of his death, adding that the 40-something-year-old man would be succeeded by Saad bin Atif al-Awqali as the leader. Al-Batarfi took over as the head of the branch in February 2020 after Qasim Arimi was killed by a drone strike ordered by then-President Donald Trump. AQAP, formed by the merging of Al-Qaeda's Yemen and Saudi branches, has launched assaults against both rebel and government targets in Yemen as well as foreigners. AQAP and other ISIS-aligned terror groups have prospered during Yemen's 9-year civil conflict. Al-Batarfi was one of 150 arrested AQAP militants who were released after the organization seized the Yemeni coastal city of Mukalla in 2015. AQAP was eventually forced out of Mukalla but continued to strike. Following Al-Qaeda's attempt to attack a commercial plane over the US in 2009, Washington regarded the group as Al-Qaeda's most dangerous affiliate. While its overseas operations have waned in recent years, AQAP remains the most effective terrorist group in Yemen, with intent to conduct operations in the region and beyond, according to the UN. The UN estimates that AQAP has 3,000 to 4,000 active fighters and passive members. The organization raises money by robbing banks and money exchange shops, smuggling weapons, and counterfeiting currencies.
Years of conflict in Yemen have led to an increase in many forms of child labor. In the Tehama region in Hodeidah, children are forced to join the labor market even in Ramadan to help support their families. This report has more details.
With the advent of the holy month of Ramadan, the children of Tehama continue to work for a living among banana trees by cutting their leaves and trunks despite its dangers. Children between the ages of 10 and 13 work under the heat of the sun. They carry trunks on their shoulders and cut it in pieces in order to ease the burden on their families. They come from other areas and settle in the valleys to search for a job. During the month of Ramadan, they continue to work to secure a proper living to their families, who are crushed by the war. In Yemen, children work in different professions in order to provide a living for their families and help with the expenses. It is the poverty that forces families to push their children to work. Children in Yemen are subjected to the worst forms of child labor, including in commercial sexual exploitation, sometimes as a result of human trafficking, and use in armed conflict, including by Houthi insurgent forces and other armed groups. Search found no evidence of a government policy on worst forms of child labor outside of child soldiering. Moreover, the Republic of Yemen government continued to have limited operational control over its ministries and was unable to enforce regulations to address child labor. In the countryside, people of Tehama welcome Ramadan with pain and suffering in light of the difficult economic conditions that their country is going through. You see the markets crowded with people who are desperately looking for Ramadan needs with affordable prices. Some people carry their animals and head to the markets to sell them in order to get some money and be able to buy Ramadan supplies. However, it's still not enough, as the prices of all food supplies are extremely expensive and the Yemeni citizen can't afford it.
Hodeidah University organized a meeting on the sinking of the ship Ruby Mar in the presence of the governor, Dr. Al-Hassan Tahir. The meeting for the necessity of filing a lawsuit in international and local courts, activating and enhancing the capabilities of the Yemeni Coast Guard forces to enable them to protect the coasts, and establishing research centers to monitor any pollution in the waters of the Yemeni seas. The United Nations said it is going to provide support to the plan of the Yemeni government to confront the consequences of the sinking of the ship Ruby Mar. The UN will be using machines and technologies to contribute to measuring the condition of the sunken ship and avoiding any potential environmental disaster. Project Massam removed approximately 600 explosive devices in the first week of this March. The project explained that the total explosive that have been removed since the start of its work in Yemen in mid-2018 until the first week of this March rose to more than 500,000 explosive devices. As the conflict in Yemen drags on for the 9th year in a row, hopes for solutions are fading out and warnings against catastrophic conditions are increasing. The United Nations launched recently an appeal to raise $4 billion to fund the 2024 humanitarian response plan in Yemen to reach millions of people with life-saving aid and protection services. This report has more details.
While the Houthis continue to target commercial shipping traffic in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, a recent UN report confirmed that Yemen is facing a bad year at all levels and warned that developments related to the Israeli war on the Gaza Strip impose new dangers. The United Nations Office for Humanitarian Affairs reported that the truce sponsored by the United Nations about 2 years ago, and which is still in effect today, led to a decrease in hostilities, and thus a decrease in the number of civilian casualties, and child mortality rates improved after years of continued humanitarian aid. But the UN office warned that the current regional developments would expose Yemen to new risks. It said that, in general, the situation is still enormous due to the sharp deterioration in widespread economic conditions, damage to civilian infrastructure, and the collapse of basic services. There are critical drivers of vulnerabilities and needs across the country. According to the report, there are 17.6 million people facing food insecurity, and about half of all children under the age of 5 suffer from severe malnutrition, in addition to 4.5 million displaced people, many of whom have been displaced multiple times over several years. According to the humanitarian response plan for the current year, 18.2 million people need assistance, while the percentage of funding during last year did not exceed 40%. However, relief agencies demonstrated their ability to confront the shortage and provide life-saving assistance and services, as organizations provided aid at an average of 8.3 million people every month. The United Nations Office for Humanitarian Affairs in Yemen confirmed the arrival of support in the form of food, healthcare, water, sanitation, education, cash, shelter, in addition to protection.
Coming next in the news. Oppenheimer film wins 7 Oscars at 2024 Academy Awards.
رمضان مبارك.
Welcome back. The Organization for the Rehabilitation of the Disabled in Lahj, founded in 2001, is an entity that strives to educate the visually impaired community and equip them with tools to integrate them into society. This report has more details.
Blind people in Lahj Governorate refer to her as a mother. This is Iqbal Qashash, who has spent over 2 decades assisting this underserved segment of Lahj community, building an educational institution that has helped many people achieve their ambition.
My organization started out as a project in a small local village where there was a sizable population of visually impaired people. As part of my work as a social rehabilitator, I worked with young children who hope to learn and integrate into society.
This self-made woman dedicated herself to serving the blind in the suburbs of Al-Hawta, Taban, and other areas with simple means. Over a dozen enrolled in her institutional programs have gone on to acquire university degrees, with some pursuing masters on a mission to overcome the obstacles hindering the disabled community.
Iqbal Kasha is like a mother to us. She has provided us with an education spanning years. We're grateful for all of her work.
Iqbal's dream is to secure a private building. For over 20 years, the current rental building has depleted funds and diverted resources better spent on furthering the education of those enrolled. But owning a building is no easy feat. Will the relevant Lahj authorities address these demands to lessen the suffering endured by the blind people in Lahj?
The International Organization for Migration announced the implementation of 2 new projects to enhance water security in Sana'a Governorate with German funding. The organization said that the 2 projects aim to enhance the resilience of about 6,000 people by improving the main infrastructure and enhancing water supplies for drinking, domestic use, and irrigation. The International Organization for Migration reported that nearly 800 families have been internally displaced in Yemen since the beginning of this year, 2024. The organization said that 18 families, or 58% of the total cases recorded last week, were displaced due to security concerns resulting from the conflict and as a result of economic conditions. The report explained that most of the displaced families last week were in Ma'rib Governorate. The Yemeni government approved a communication of understanding with the U.S. on the protection of Yemeni cultural property. The understanding, which was signed in Washington, aims at enhancing the protection of Yemen's cultural property by extending restrictions on the import of them and preventing their smuggling to the U.S. Oppenheimer is the big winner of the 96 Oscars after scooping 7 awards, including Best Picture and Best Actor for Cillian Murphy. The film, which had 13 nominations, also won Best Supporting Actor as well as Best Director, plus Film Editing, Cinematography, and Original Score. Emma Stone was awarded Best Actress for her role in Poor Things, which also wins Best Production Design, Makeup, and Costume Design. Meanwhile, some Oscar attendees were delayed arriving at the Dolby Theatre on Sunday when demonstrators calling for a ceasefire in Gaza filled lanes for traffic a few blocks south of the theater, according to Los Angeles police. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. Ramadan begins in Gaza with no truce in sight and a dire humanitarian crisis gripping the besieged territory. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula announces death of its leader Khalid Batrafi in mysterious circumstances. Yemen's children in the Tehama region are forced into labor in Ramadan to support their families. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.